With Kay, I'm Kay Ryder, and every week I talk with Vermonters who are leaders in the fields of government, healthcare, education, the arts, and community life. And welcome to our listeners, our radio listeners on 99.3 FM, WBVT-LP. Our guest is Steve MacQueen, and Steve is the Artistic Director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington, Vermont. Hi there.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Nice to have you here. Where is the Flynn located?
153 Main Street, the heart of Burlington, Vermont, right downtown. We anchor at the south end of Church Street, essentially.
There you go. Good place to be.
It's a great place to be.
Yes. You have brought some clips of shows, but we're going to show those in just a minute. But approximately how many performances are held at the Flynn every year?
Wow, we're held at the Flynn. That's a tough one. Internally, the ones that we schedule, we have the Flynn Theater and Flynn Space, our smaller theaters. So I would say we probably do, 50 up on the big stage and probably another 60 down on the smaller stage. And then we're also a rental house for a lot of places like Higher Ground and the Nutcrackers and the Symphony, of course.
Lyric theater, yeah.
A lyric theater.
Yeah.
So we probably do, on the main stage, well over 100. Probably the same down in Flynn Space. Busy,
Wow.
It's busy.
Wow, you're a busy space,
We're a
aren't
busy
you?
place, for sure.
Very busy. Well, you brought us some clips of upcoming shows from your season, and we're going to start with the Dance Theater of Harlem.
Yes.
And this is a great troupe.
It's an incredible troupe. It's their 50th anniversary season, and they actually had to shut down for 9 years, from 2004 to 2013, and it was kind of dark. It looked like we might not have this troupe around anymore, but they've come back very successfully.
Great.
They sort of started out as Arthur Mitchell started out back in '69, and he had open use to all of George Balanchine's ballets, and he was able to use those to really develop the reputation, and they've since gone off to different places, and they're going to do a brand new piece and a great Jeffrey Holder piece from the 70s, kind of a Caribbean carnival piece. They're one of my favorite dance companies. I'm delighted to bring them back. It's been a long time, I think decades, since they've been at the Flynn.
Well, let's look at the Dance Theater of Harlem.
Great.
We can look now.
My name is Donald Williams. I'm a former principal dancer with Dance Theater of Harlem. As part of its 50th anniversary, has brought back Jeffrey Holder's Dougla, which is one of the signature pieces of Dance Theater of Harlem from way back. It was originally choreographed in 1974. You're bringing your own flavor, your own extra feeling to it, what you're saying in your eyes, in your face, and in your body as well. Before, we were trying to prove that dancers of color could do classical ballet. Now that we know that that's a fact and we can do it, now we're trying to do everything. We want to make sure that we continue to do what Dance Theater of Harlem was always known for, which is being able to do all styles and do them all well.
I saw the Dance Theater of Harlem. I have seen them a couple times, actually. And I love that troupe. They're very strong.
Very physical, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what else I like? I probably shouldn't say this, but I think that some classical dancers, especially the women, the ballet, are emaciated looking.
Oh, I think we're getting away from that. I think that's getting to be a thing of the past. Misty Copeland, she doesn't look emaciated at all. I think we're putting that in the rearview mirror, and it's healthy for a lot of reasons.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see how you can keep up your strength if you don't eat, and that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what my mother told me.
My grandmother told me. And now we have Waitress, which is part of your Broadway season.
We have a good Broadway season this year. Beautiful's coming through. There are a lot of recent things. Beautiful and Waitress are both since 2010. Waitress was a great movie. I think it was Andy Griffith's last movie. Homespun story about a woman trying to make it by making really good pies. And it's also the first show in the history of Broadway. This is going to blow your mind. The first show in the history of Broadway to have a female director, composer, book writer, and choreographer. The first show ever. It came out in 2015. That kind of blew my mind. I thought never, not even in the 70s, was there like an all-female creative cast for a Broadway show.
Way overdue.
Way overdue.
Way overdue.
It's a really good, really solid show. Sarah Bareilles is the composer, dynamite young composer. So I'm excited about that one.
Okay, well, let's see something from Waitress. That looks like great fun.
Yeah, it does look like great fun. We have 2 shows of that, so.
Yeah, you know, I find it fascinating that, you know, again, you know, the concept of food. Food is love, you know, and you know, baking pies. Pies are not easy to make, actually.
No, not if you're going to make your own crust, right?
Yeah, right.
And then it's not really a pie. You didn't really make a pie
That's
if you
right.
didn't make the crust.
That's right.
You just poured filling into something.
You
right?
cheat. That's cheating.
I agree.
That's cheating.
Agreed.
Now, our next show that you brought clips from is called Overcome, and we shall overcome. And of course, the minute you hear that, you think of Martin Luther King Jr. and his famous speech at Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. That's what the show's about. It's about the music of the civil rights movement, but it's not just like specifically songs about the civil. It's not just a change is going to come. It's about how the civil rights movement and that era affected all types of music and how they all sort of became part of the greater part of that culture. And it's about the culture that informed the civil rights movement to begin with. But it always had a bit of a soundtrack going on with it that was really quite inspiring and beautiful.
Right, jazz, gospel,
Jazz was there,
gospel
yeah.
The
staple singers, the protest songs, all kinds of amazing things like that going on. R&B music, and even some pop music crosses over into that. It was a really transformative era for music, for our culture, for so many things.
It's American music.
It's American music.
Right. Okay, we shall overcome.
Great.
Well, you know, in addition to the gospel and the jazz, way back when the African Americans, when they were slaves, their hymns, their songs that they would sing on Sunday morning when they had their, even when they were out in the fields. I mean, you know, they could sing about the Hebrews seeking freedom.
Right.
But they, you know, and this translated for them into seeking their own freedom.
Yeah, freedom's a powerful concept.
Oh yeah.
Everybody wants it.
Yeah, yeah. It's just an amazing. This should be an amazing show.
We're doing an association with UVM and the Martin Luther King Jr. Week, the celebration, and this is going to be one of the linchpins of that. Gospel choir is going to be part of the show as well. Damian Sneed's a super talented composer, keyboard player. It's going to be very high energy, beautiful. A lot of goosebumps. I got goosebumps watching her sing Bridge Over Troubled Water there.
I always got goosebumps when I listened to Mahalia Jackson.
No, sure.
I mean, just absolutely.
Yeah. Can't bring her.
No, too bad.
Yeah, too bad is right.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm talking with Steve MacQueen, who's the artistic director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington, Vermont. Okay, now let's move on here. Talking about dance, you have a variety of dance coming, but you have something that's very traditional. You have the Sleeping Beauty with the Russian troupe.
That's right. We have the Flynn, way before my time, has been one of the national kind of cornerstones of dance presenting. That's just one of the things it was built on. Andrea Rogers and made that one of the absolute foundations of the Flynn. So it's been a privilege to further that. And so we like to get as much as we can. We have modern dance, of course, and international dance. Our previous director, John Kalaki, was very big on artists with disabilities. He wanted to focus on some of the great talent there. So this year we have Kinetic Light, an incredible piece by two women in wheelchairs on a ramp. It's really an astonishing piece of work. We have Momix coming back with all the costumes. We have Malpaso, a Cuban dance company, the only independent dance company out of Cuba. But sometimes you just want to forget all that and put on a tutu, dance to Tchaikovsky, like they did in 1890 in St. Petersburg, right? So that's what we're going to do with Sleeping Beauty and the
Great.
And the ballet company.
I saw Dave Margot Fontaine in
very nice.
Sleeping Beauty. It was a great thrill.
I'm sure.
Absolutely great thrill.
She will not be touring with this company.
I hope not. Or rather, I would hope
that's
so.
Right. She's somewhere with Mahalia Jackson right now.
Now let's talk about a little bit about music. Now Arlo Guthrie is coming, and of course he's
returning to the Flynn.
And is he going to sing the famous Alice's Restaurant too?
He is. He said this is he originally said he was only going to tour on anniversary years of the record, which I think came out in 66, 65.
Something like that, yeah.
So this is not one. So when he was asked about it, he said, forget it, I just do what I want now. So he's going to do it this year. It's going to be an Alice's Restaurant tour. It's been 4 or 5 years since he was back. We love having him. He loves Burlington. Yeah. I guess some incident in the 70s he's a little coy about, really brought it up. He just loves coming back to Burlington.
That's great.
Yeah, so he'll be here. It's always been a great show. People love him. He fits in beautifully with the whole Vermont Burlington aesthetic.
Absolutely.
Culturally, politically.
Now,
so.
Could you get everything at Alice's Restaurant?
That's what he says.
You could get a lot of stuff at Alice's Restaurant. Right, let's put it that way. I am also happy that Pink Martini is returning.
Oh yeah. They've been here several times. They always do great. I think of them as a cruise ship on the Titanic, but it never sinks. They just seem like this worldwide, multilingual group that should play to people really dressed up and waltzing or whatever. They sing songs in 20 different languages, and it's all it's both kind of cheesy but also very serious. It strikes that perfect balance between humor and seriousness, and the musical chops are fantastic.
They put it together beautifully.
They do.
Yes.
The tricky thing that they do, and they pull it off about as well as you can.
And their vocalists can sing in so many languages.
That's right. And this is China Forbes is coming, because she's got Vermont connections as well. We had Storm Large do her solo show this past season, and it was a knockout as well. So there's a lot of talent they draw from.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Great.
So much. Now we have Nella from Venezuela.
Oh, yeah, down in Flynn
and
space.
she should be an interesting singer to hear.
She is a beautiful singer. She's Venezuelan, but she also has very Spanish roots in her music as well. She's down in Flynn space. We're trying to up our world music presence down in Flynn space. Those shows always do so fabulously well, and so we're trying to team up with Kumbancha Records, Jacob Edgar, bring some more world music down there. We have the Garifuna Collective before her, which is an incredible group from the Garifuna community down in southern Mexico around Belize. But Nella is a very accomplished, top-line world music singer. It's totally the small group. It's guitar, little percussion, maybe a little bass, so it's very sultry, very minimalist, and very beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard a recording. Sounds great. Sounds great. Mm-hmm. Jazz, Chick Corea, oh my.
I love jazz. I love our jazz festival that the Flynn runs. I love, and Chick Corea, this trio is Chick Corea, Christian McBride, who was our artist in residence at the Jazz Festival a few years ago, just one of my favorite human beings I've ever worked with in the industry. And Brian Blade, maybe the best drummer in jazz. I mean, you just can't miss. Chick Corea is a genius. Christian McBride calls him, he says, we have Bach, Beethoven, people like that. We talk about Chick Corea is a living version of that, an embodiment of the virtuoso pianist and the virtuoso composer who can play any style, because he's like music, just flows through him. It's always an honor to have him come back.
How did the Jazz Fest do, Steve?
Did great. We, it was kind of crazy. We weathered some bizarre cancellations. We had an emergency appendectomy, and we had an emergency, what else? Oh, somebody broke their hip, and Brian Wilson had a bit of a nervous breakdown, so we had to, but it all came together great. We did this great $10 at the tent show with Tank and the Bankas and got like 1,500 people out there.
Wow.
And it was beautiful. It all worked out so great. It might have been my favorite jazz festival. Peace and love was in the air, it was beautiful.
Well, we have a special bond with the Jazz Festival. Our old neighbor Tom Cleary was there performing with his group, and Tom grew up next door to us.
Oh, fantastic musician.
So this is, we heard Tom playing when he was a little kid.
Tom's a beautiful guy too, and a tremendous player. So.
Oh yeah, he's really good.
Yeah, he's just indicative of this Burlington music scene, which is so deep and so many in a variety of genres, and just there's so much great music out there that's just homegrown.
Yep, absolutely. I'm talking with Steve MacQueen, and Steve is the artistic director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts in Burlington, Vermont. Let's talk about classical. You also have that. Now,
we did a little more than usual this year.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm a great classical music lover, and I love Renee Fleming, and she's coming.
Yeah, I saw Renee Fleming, I think in 2003, in a little jewel box in theater in Atlanta called Spivey Hall. And it's one of the greatest things I ever saw in my life. And at the end of the show, I fully expected her to sprout wings and fly away, because she seemed like she had to be a creature from another place.
Yeah.
That kind of beauty just wasn't something that we did. She's the most amazing singer. I don't think she's ever been to Vermont.
Really?
That's what her agent was telling me.
Huh. I know she's been to Cape Cod. I know
which is not in Vermont.
Which is not in Vermont. I'm trying to think about other places she would be in New England. Yeah.
Anyway, she's coming. She's going to do a lecture that she's doing. She's part of a Kennedy Center initiative called Music and the Mind, and it's about how the arts, and music especially, can help in brain development, its effect on brain development, and how we can use it to actually create better lives. We teach arts to young people especially, but it's going to be a lecture she's going to do with the University of Vermont, that she tailors it everywhere she goes, and somebody local joins her. And that'll be a free and open discussion with Renee Fleming, somebody at the UVM Medical Center, about the real benefits of music in the mind.
Right, they used music therapy for people with Alzheimer's.
They use it for so many things.
Very effective.
We have a class at we have an education program at the Flynn, very powerful, and one of the things we offer in a class is a dance for Parkinson's, and we have people with Parkinson's that come and dance. It's an approved program, and how dance helps people with Parkinson's is incredible. They're actually a performing company now. You see them around town. They've done pop-up dances. They performed at John Clacky's Going Away party. They're here and there, and it's amazing to watch that type of effect that the arts and music in particular can have on physicality in the brain. There's so much we don't know.
Right. Now, Renee Fleming, of course, she sang at the Super Bowl.
She's sung everywhere.
She's sung everywhere.
She transcends classical. She's put out a couple of records of pop music she loves. Joni Mitchell kind of has a huge influence on her, and she's an amazing person, and she's an amazing singer. I'm delighted she's coming back.
Yes, I've talked with her several times, and she sang in New York City after 9/11.
Yeah,
and I can't imagine. Someone asked her, "How can you sing at such a time? How can you do that?" And she said, "It's my job."
That's her job. Yeah.
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 Very.
She's a siren. She's got a gift, and she shares it.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And she sang in a jazz club over in Canton, New York.
She's in a lot of jazz clubs.
To help earn money when she was in undergraduate.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. She still sings jazz on occasion.
Yep.
But she's got a gift for classical singing that's just beyond belief.
Yeah. And she's just a very fine person.
Yeah,
and she's out at Aspen now. She's going to help run the opera programs out at Aspen.
Oh, great.
So that she's very interested in education.
Yes, she is indeed.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Lake Champlain Chamber Music Festival.
Okay.
You're going to do a couple shows with them.
We've done that for 6 years now.
And that's a wonderful collaboration, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. We work with Suvin Kim, and originally it was him and some people we played with, and we've expanded more. And this year we're going to do 2 shows that are not Suvin, that are totally different things. The Westerlies are going to come with Lizzie Shelton, and yeah, we love to do those performances with them.
It seems to me that you have a lot of Vermont connections in your season this year.
Absolutely. Oh, wow.
I think more than previously. Is that true?
Well, I'd like to hear that. That's good to hear. It's something we want to try to amplify and keep up. I mean, we live in a really culturally rich area, and we really want to make sure we reflect all the local and regional talent that's here, and use it in ways to amplify shows that we're already bringing in as well. However we can do that, there's always ways to do it better and do it more, but we're always striving to do more. So I love to hear you say it feels like there's more than it before. That's great.
Right. I think that I'm also, I love Broadway shows, of course.
Oh, yes.
And, Fiddler on the Roof, now they're updating it. Do you know
They
what
updated
they're
a little
doing?
bit. Like the choreography's a little updated. The Jerome Robbins original choreography has been updated by an Israeli choreographer named Hofesh Schechter, quite beautifully. Everything can use a little updating now and then. It's just a little sleeker. It's still the same story. I mean, it's still the same story. It's the same setting, and they did nothing crazy to it. You don't want to mess with something that isn't broken.
That's right. That's right.
You have to go back and actually read the history to remember how seminal that show was. It was the longest running show in the history of Broadway. The first show to ever get 3,000 performances. It won 9 Tony Awards. B. Arthur and Bette Midler were in it, like in the '60s. Super. It was kind of the defining '60s show. Almost.
It was a blockbuster.
It was a
Absolutely.
huge blockbuster.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's always great to bring that back, and it's updated, but only in terms, I think, of the choreography is the main thing. But the show is still the Fiddler on the Roof that we all know and love. They wouldn't mess with those tunes.
Steve, Chicago is coming back.
Yeah,
I love that show.
I
The
love that
bootleggers,
show,
the
too.
dancers.
I love that show too. And what I learned, it was not a flop, but it wasn't a success when it came out.
It wasn't.
A chorus line was the big hit, and people weren't ready for the kind of cynicism of Chicago at that time.
Or the sensuality, I
Or
think.
the sensuality, yeah.
Right, yeah.
But there was the revival in '96. That is now the longest running Broadway show in history, is the revival of Chicago.
Yeah. I was there in '96.
As was I.
Oh.
I was living in New York at that. I saw Anne Ryan King and Bebe Neuwirth. Yeah, it was a great show.
Oh, that
It's
was
still a great show.
that was just marvelous. Absolutely marvelous.
I also heard a really funny story about the creation of that show. Is that it's based on these newspaper columns by a woman named Watkins, and she wrote them in the '20s about 2 real cases. And Bob Fosse came across these, and Gwen Verdon, his wife, said, "Oh, make a show for me out of this. This is so compelling." And he went to Maureen Dallas Watkins, the writer, and she wouldn't give him the rights because she felt guilty about it. She felt she had gotten these women off who should have been sent to prison. But then she died the next year and he bought the rights. So we got the show anyway. So.
Well, I'm talking with Steve MacQueen, and he's the artistic director of the Flynn Center for the Performing Arts. Another very moving show, I think, which is coming, is the gentleman who's going to be here all year.
Oh, Daniel Bernard Dumaine.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about this. I can't tell you. I think it's the thing I'm most excited about. We've collaborated with the Vermont Symphony Orchestra and the Lane series at UVM to bring in Daniel Bernard Dumaine. DBR is what he goes by.
DBR, right.
He's a violinist composer, but he's also so much more than that. He can play classical rap. He's totally classically trained. Virtuoso, but he's interested in connection and in social activism, and he calls himself an artist entrepreneur. And we brought him in to come 5 different times over the year, starting back in August, but he's going to work through May, and he's going to make different connections with different musicians, different people. He's going to be in residence at the Integrated Arts Academy, the Howard Center, in all kinds of places, really kind of discovering Vermont himself. It's supposed to shine a light on immigration. The theme of his residency is immigration, and mostly the profound effect that immigration's had on Vermont, Burlington, Chittenden County in the last 25, 30 years, the positive, profound effect. We want to take the dialogue away from this national dialogue of where it's controversial or problematic, because we want to focus on the beneficial aspects that we've seen here in Chittenden County. And so he's going to be jamming with all kinds of musicians, Vermont musicians who were born in places far away. A lot of them came through the refugee resettlement program, and to create this sort of new look of Vermont. And at the end of it all, he's going to perform a brand new piece commissioned by the VSO and the Flynn on May 2nd, and the Vermont Symphony Orchestra will play the world premiere of this piece, which at the moment is called Riots and Prayers. We'll see if that's the title that makes it to the end. He's working on it as he's in Vermont, so it's a work in progress right now.
Well, my father was an immigrant. And my grandparents were immigrants on my mother's side. And so, I'm very into this.
Sure, I think this is America. You can trace it back. Everybody's parents were
I'm
immigrants.
not very removed from the scene.
Right.
And I think it's a marvelous thing to do, Steve, and I applaud it.
Well, great.
I really do.
I think it's going to work out really beautifully. He's an amazing man and a great artist, and he's the perfect person for this job because he just creates connection the way he talks and also the way he plays. He's so open to everything. Really beautiful.
Yeah, well, that's wonderful that you're doing this.
Thanks.
Before I forgot, where would someone call? And I know you have a website.
Oh, I think they would call, if you want to call the box office for tickets, you can call 86
Flynn.
Flynn. Yeah, I don't know the numbers that come. Hopefully you have one of those
Right.
keypads that
Yeah.
shows you the numbers.
Yeah.
802-86 Flynn. Our box office is open from 10 to 5 during weekdays and an hour before shows. That's always a place to go. And online is flynncenter.org can show you the shows, and flynntix.org will sell you tickets. So
Great. Now, we never have time to talk about everything.
No.
But I would like to talk a little bit about your education program.
Oh, sure.
I love it when those big yellow buses pull up,
Oh,
Steve.
it's one of the most amazing things, yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to see. It's almost like Christmas when they pull up, you know? It's wonderful.
yeah, the power of the Flynn's education program, it's almost hard to overestimate. It's really impactful. Over almost 40,000 K through 12 students come for matinees every year to see these major artists or touring artists. That's just the smallest part of what we do. There's classes for adults and kids. There are camps. There's our show choir. It's an incredible education program that connects with schools and not just K through 12 students, but adults as well. We talk about the Dance for Parkinson's in really profound ways. And to me, it's a model for nationwide. There's obviously, I'm an arts professional, so I will complain about the dearth of arts education.
Right.
I just find it appalling
Oh.
that kids can go through school and not learn about the great cultural history of
I know.
America. You know, that's STEM,
I know.
not STEAM. It's a shame, which does have an A in it.
It's a rotten shame.
It's a rotten
and whenever
shame,
they
so-
whenever they cut school funds, they never cut football. They cut the arts.
I know, and it's
yeah.
It's why I think it's why we see like sort of a classical music. We always complain the audience is too old, and it's not because of anything in the music. It's about because we don't know anything.
Right.
We don't teach people, and
Right.
so what the Flynn has really done, stepped in and done since long before my time. Again, is be that arts education provider and step in and fill that role as much as we can. To sort of help the generations. In a way, it's self-serving for us because we're creating our own future audience.
Right.
You know, it helps us as the Flynn because we pride ourselves on a well-balanced cultural program to raise people that appreciate a well-balanced cultural program.
Well, it sounds silly, but you do have to create an audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do. You
Oh,
have
yeah.
to. You know, classical music, it's better than it sounds. I saw a bumper sticker.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and you know, but we really do need to do that. And the Flynn is doing it. And I applaud your efforts. I'm looking forward to your season. You have such variety. And I think you try to send a message out, Steve. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kay. It's always a pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations with Kay.